Strategy Corner, a show intended to equip you with the business principles to help you become the leader your organization requires. Our guests from top business schools, renowned consultancy firms, and forward-thinking leaders and executives will provide you with the contemporary business insights and principles to help you successfully navigate the complex world of business. And now, here's your host, Lekometsa Mogesi.
Hello and welcome to Strategy Corner. I'm your host, Lekometsa Mogesi. In our previous episode, Dudu Msomi, the founder and CEO of Busara Leadership Partners, shared with us some insights about entrepreneurship. But it turns out being an entrepreneur is not easy as we think. A lot of entrepreneurs think having a good idea guarantees them success. But in reality, it does not. Research shows that the failure rate of startup companies within a 3-year period is a staggering 70 to 80%. That means if 10 people started companies this year, there is a likelihood that 8 of those would have died. What is it that we are doing wrong? Dudu Msomi explains why.
Well, there could be many reasons. Sometimes it's the economic environment, and then understand how to get from point A to point B with the limited resources that you have.
Dudu, thank you so much for joining us again.
It was good to be here, and it's still good to be here.
Now, in this segment, we're going to focus on business sustainability and a little bit of scalability. Stage for our listeners, we're talking about sustainability not in a broader sense of the triple bottom line of people, profit, and planet, where we pollute the planet actually, but really about the survival of a company. The failure rate of startups, I think these are global statistics really. Within the 3 to 5 years, it's about 70 to 80%. Why do we have such failure rates? Why are they so high?
Well, there could be many reasons. Sometimes it's the economic environment at that time. So it all depends. Everything really has to got to do with how you think things through. Part of why I enjoy strategy is you kind of have to survey the land very quickly, have the right information, and then understand how to get from point A to point B with the limited resources that you have. And for me, that excites me. So sometimes we lack that skill set in terms of our own businesses, because we can't start a business because we are passionate. And it's very difficult sometimes to change what you're passionate about when you find that the market is not receiving you the way, which is why it's important not to be too in love with your own idea. The idea is, am I meeting the need? And is the market willing to pay me for that? And you need to be very agile in changing how you do things depending on how the market is responding to you. So the failure rates really are for diverse reasons. Sometimes as entrepreneurs ourselves, we do not get the right talent timelessly into the business because we know it all. And sometimes we do not delegate and share the power. And the one thing that's amazing about diversity inspires creativity and innovation. It's very important that you invite and are open to other ideas, because they help you see blind spots where you don't, see opportunities where you don't. So sometimes as entrepreneurs, we hold on too long and we don't change fast enough. But also, we're not always scanning the market. I always say it's very important to work on your business, not just in your business. Because if you are not doing what you do for your clients. So I am a strategist. If I'm spending so much time making sure that my clients' businesses are sustainable, but I'm not doing the same for myself, I'm going to be dead. So you have to always do that kind of check in terms of your business, making sure that your business has got the right resources, human capital, technology platforms, finance, all the resources you need, and you're giving your resources the space to do what they need to do. So questions are always complex. There's never one answer. We started during the recession. In South Africa, we had a recession in 2009, and a number of people thought I was crazy. For me, it was a blessing, because one of the things I learned when I was doing my research as part of preparation, when speaking to people who had run professional services firm and had gone back into corporate, was they said they were during the boom. So when the new South Africa came about, there are some people that were well placed, had great opportunities, and businesses were just running in. They couldn't handle the volume. They didn't have proper systems. They were not able to deliver the way they were expected to. And over time, growth can also kill a business. If you grow too quickly, you can kill the business if you're not doing it properly. So when we started in 2009 and there was a recession, I did not see it as a problem, because I thought, well, I may not have the volume, but whatever business I have, I'm able to learn and work on my systems and work on just delivering and finding out whether I really have a good value proposition, which is why over time we have been able to see, okay, maybe we shouldn't focus on this. Let's change it to that, because we are not overwhelmed. I also didn't spend a lot of time trying to create huge overheads, which is something we do. I was just talking to somebody yesterday who they're starting a new firm and they were going to look for office space. And I'm like, how many of you? 4. Why are you looking for office space? Why? Is your business, which actually does not require them to actually have offices at this point in time, why are you doing it? Because we now have virtual offices, and you have places where if you need an office or a boardroom, you can hire for the day. So there are many reasons why we are failing, but a lot of it is because I call it we're not strategic enough. Because being strategic, you have to look at things from multiple point of views, take in lots of information, and then decide what is the right thing to do at the right time. And most of us miss the boat. We hold on too long sometimes. So a lot of people didn't predict or even know the financial crises was going to affect us in South Africa. So if everything else is shrinking and government spend is shrinking, and you happen to get a lot of business from government, shouldn't you already anticipate that this is going to affect your business and must diversify? So a lot of us don't engage in that, which is why I say a lot of us who are entrepreneurs sometimes need to invest in getting outside help. And understanding that it is not a cost as much as an investment, to get other minds that will help you to figure this out and to see things that you don't see.
So what I'm really getting is it has a lot more to do with the execution of the strategy. I'm amazed that being a strategist yourself, I'm sure you're aware of the stats of the failure rates of the strategy execution and change, organizational change initiatives. They look very comparable to me to the failure rates of startups. I mean, the failures of strategy execution initiatives are more or less 70 to 90%. So for a big corporate, if your strategy fails, it's a little bit more forgiving because the firm is sustainable. But as a startup, if your strategy fails, that means you've gone.
Well, I mean, when you're bigger, sometimes you have cash to burn. Yeah. There are many companies that really should have gone under a long time ago. I don't necessarily think it's always about execution. I also think the strategy in terms of quality itself is not the right thing. I think sometimes we mistake activities for strategy. People just are doing a whole lot of stuff, and then the business makes them think they are being strategic. You have to be very clear what the goal is, your vision, and whether the elements and the things that you are doing are going to lead you to that vision. Sometimes we don't spend enough time investigating and surveying our environment, and we sometimes make the wrong assumptions. Sometimes we should care more about what we don't know, which is also why it's important to have diversity. So even big corporates, sometimes when you try and invite, for example, big corporates to some of our events, we get told, oh no, we got our own economists and analysts who give information. It is sometimes very good to be exposed to diverse views that could help your thinking or make you think differently. So we can really sometimes be very inwardly focused, and that will impact the quality of your strategy. And so that's why I say sometimes the strategy itself is not good. So there's no way execution is going to be correct if the thinking behind it was not good, because already execution will be good if you thought through the strategy properly. Because strategy is really about what you do day to day. I don't understand why people think it's something different. If what you're doing day to day is not leading you to where you said you want to go, then you're not executing, nor do you have a strategy. So you need to be very clear, which is why sometimes when I work with clients, especially management level, and there is a very influential CEO, we have these conversations of you need to be empowered to not always execute what the CEO wants when it's outside of the strategy that was decided. You will have people who will attend conferences and attend other stuff outside and keep on coming with more and more things that, oh, we must do that. It's got nothing to do with the direction of the organization and whether it's the best thing for the organization to do. And that's where you talk about things on execution. If your time is spent on receiving things all the time and really not doing the things that you decided upon, that this is the best way to reach where we want to go to, you're never going to achieve anything.
So you also mentioned that growth can actually kill a business, or scaling.
If not done properly, yes.
How does that happen?
Well, you can burn so much cash that you don't even have the cash in order to be able to do what you have. Because most businesses are run by human beings. So, and human beings need to be taken along when you're doing stuff, which is why we get stuck on change management issues. And we get stuck on the definitions and what it is. But literally, it's about your people, understanding your people, and how do you get them to buy into the new course that you're now taking. So growth can be a problem for you if it's not the right thing to do, or you don't have the resources, or there are just like diverse reasons why. But people assume that when you're growing, it's always good. It's not always good. So an example that I used, a professional services firm that is not able to service the clients that you're getting in. How are clients going to pay you if you're not delivering the service? Because you're going to gain a bad reputation, and slowly clients are going to stop coming to you. and you're going to lose the very money that is going to help you grow further. So every business is different. But as I say, it's always difficult when you're talking in broad terms like we are. Every business is different, but there are different levers that you have to pull in terms of a company and growth, and to change things as something grows. So whether it's your systems, it's your distribution channels. So there are so many things that can cause growth to be a downfall.
So the other thing that you mentioned is getting the right talent into the business very late on, not getting it at all. I mean, small businesses, startups have a lot of constraints in terms of capital. How do you navigate that complexity of you don't have that much budget, but obviously you need to get talent?
Sometimes what attracts people to your business is other things outside of the finances. I remember the first company I worked for, I was more inspired by the vision and what they were trying to do more than the financial gains, because I'm sure if I had gone to a different organization, I would have been paid more. So I think the challenge for a lot of and we know this because look at all these technology startups when they tell you how they'll be sleeping in these places, working and sleeping, not getting paid for 3-4 months because they are passionate about something. So that's one way. You get people that are passionate, and you give them shares, offer them shares, and they build the business with you. That's one way. Sometimes you develop the resources. So you may not get the highly skilled people, but they're passionate, respectful of the business, and they will help you grow. So your money can go further. But also, if you don't have the capacity and the time to teach, then that's not the right thing to do. Because if you're going to get people that you need to train and you don't train them, that's damaging to the business than helpful. But then there are times where you know that getting this skill, no matter how expensive it is actually going to shorten the time frame in terms of us growing as a business, because there are just this talent that for sure you're going to land clients, you're going to get money. So you have to look at some of these things as an investment more than a cost, and see how then you can partition the little capital that you have. So every business is different. So a professional services company, most times you can start off by working per project so that people are not on your payroll full time, but they just work on that project so that you're not carrying costs that and overheads that you cannot afford. So it's a matter of being creative. Look at all the platforms whether it's the Ubers of the world, how they started. You got all these drivers that are working for you, but they are not on your payroll, are they? So there are more and more interesting business models and the way we can run our businesses where capital may not always be a hindrance, but it's about how creatively we look at our businesses. But I still really see human beings, if you can get the right human beings who share the same value system, have the passion for your business, I mean, that's just the winning combination. It's just the most amazing thing. And it's about building that brand that makes them want to be part of you.
I mean, you highlighted now, and I think in the article as well, that capital is not one of the top reasons why these companies fail. but it has a lot to do with the value proposition or the unique value proposition. You want to expand a little bit about the
Yeah.
importance of that unique value proposition?
Because what's the reason for you existing? If that business cannot answer that, and because the question is, you have a service or a product, who is willing to spend money for that service or product? And the way you survive is having enough people willing to spend money for that product or service to survive. And that is a result of having met a need or answering a pain that's existing. Because even, I mean, the joke we used to share around iPods when they came out, if you had done a focus group and said, and showed them this, or described this, they would not have thought there's a need for it. But when there is that product, it answers, there is really latent need that it answered. So it's also about how you define the need. Because sometimes I think we can be too literal in terms of, do you go to the market, and if the market cannot say, yes, I need that product, then you don't go for it. Sometimes there are people that are before the market. They are pioneering. They invent stuff. So even us as human beings, we don't always know what we want. But there is a sophisticated way of tapping into that need. So maybe the need is around convenience, or the need is about entertainment or whatever. And it's just a matter of how creatively you communicate that. So people say, oh, okay, I didn't know I needed it, but yeah, that would be a nice thing to have. So I think that's what makes entrepreneurship so interesting and so exciting, that half of the things we can talk about in terms of labeling things and putting things in categories, you will also just in the next instance find a situation that will kind of prove it false. So everything is unique. There will be things that are common, but I think that's what makes it interesting, because you just don't know. There are many things that are being created now that we don't even know we want or need. And yet when they're out in the market, we will be buying.
I think one of the interesting phrases you use is, if you are gone tomorrow, what will we miss about you?
Yeah. Isn't that the sad thing? There are a lot of us in terms of our businesses, actually, where some people actually don't even know that you no longer exist, you know, when you go down and don't survive. And that's sad, because, but there are businesses and products and services now that you're like, gosh, what did I ever do before this? You literally cannot imagine a life before that. And I think that's just a dream of any entrepreneur, to touch that spot and to be able to reinvent yourself in that spot. It's not easy, and I really admire people that are able to do it. The one brand that keeps on fascinating me is IBM. IBM has been around for over 100 years.
Correct.
And they keep on reinventing themselves. They will always, even though they don't always succeed in everything that they do, you know, the PC market, somebody came, and so they may sometimes develop things before and may not see the market the same way and sometimes lose share, but they're always reinventing themselves. And I mean, we are now in 2018 and you still know who IBM is. And there are markets where there are industries that can't do without them. I mean, that's an amazing company. That's what you call sustainability. And I must say, I was not really in love with them until I really reflected on that. And I was like, wow, there are other firms that we talk about and we find sexy, but that is a long life.
That's correct, yeah.
That is a long life. I mean, it's an amazing business. So it's going to be interesting. Within 100 years, they'll still be around.
So one of the things also that you mentioned is entrepreneurs should be able to basically walk away from their original idea. Because sometimes you get too attached to your idea that even if it's not working, but
Yeah.
the passion is just over.
It's like you're forcing it down our throats.
That's
It's
correct,
like, I mean, I remember when I started my company, I will not tell you the name it was called. Busara was there, but that was the only thing. And I really, one of the divisions, our plan was, because when we started, there were a number of black executives that were in their 30s and 40s and had gone up the corporate ladder as far as they could, whether they were lawyers, whether they were actuaries, whether they were, CAs, and they knew that the only way they could go now is horizontal, because the corporate cultures were not ready for them in terms of being the next CEO, so there was a lot of frustration. And in talking to them, we realized that a lot of them actually, even though they would like to work on their own and for themselves, they don't enjoy the new business part of it. So they would love to have somebody who actually gets the business on their behalf and they just do the work, because it's amazing how competence is not always aligned to black people. And yet that's our experience. I find a lot of competent, capable black professionals and executives. So one of our division was not to be your typical recruitment firm, because executive firm. So our proposal to the market was to have these people come in on contract basis, because they still wanted stability of income and the challenge, but they really just didn't want the discomfort of pursuing the business. The market liked the idea, but they did not like the idea as well, because it's not going to help them with their BE numbers. They wanted a stable workforce, permanent workforce for their BE numbers. We love the idea. So I could have flogged that idea, but the market was not receiving it. So I then had to learn to let go of the idea. Because in a different market where it's not about compliance and BE stats, it would possibly have been a good idea. So this is what I'm talking about, that at some point you have to evolve. And so our business evolved. The other divisions have always been the way they are, and others had to change. So it's very important not to fall in love with the idea. When the market is not ready for it, you have to understand your market. That's what strategic thinking is about. Understanding, reading the market, scanning, understanding what it's saying to you, because sometimes you can also read it wrong. In South Africa, we understood that BE numbers, EE numbers are most important, and people were not even willing to be creative around it.
The other factor is, you said we don't invest too much in ourselves in trying to learn and improve ourselves. And when you talk about the market, I can't help but think of some of the tools and frameworks that are used nowadays in order to help entrepreneurs really shape their business. One of them is the business model canvas. Because now, I don't know if it's an agreed upon phenomenon that business plans are not really that effective now. If you send someone a 40-page business plan, they probably won't read it. But there are other tools now that are more visual that you can use to shape your business. Because at the end of the day, the market is really, you have to go out there and test the market. You can't sit somewhere in your corner and theorize about the market. You actually have to go and test the market. That's when you will know whether
it can be received or not.
yeah, correct. Yeah.
It always is. Business plans were really an idea to articulate your ideas, just to take them from your head and put them down and interrogate them. I still believe that's what a lot of work I do in strategy is about, because a lot of things we have in our heads, and sometimes as entrepreneurs you need to commit them to writing and interrogation to really see if they have substance. So those are just guidelines, because honestly, if we did not sometimes commit things in writing or in whatever form, now we use visual or audio, and articulate a path from day to day, you could just be changing your mind. But also, I find things like that. So my issue around strategy, why for me it's important, the minute you're more than one person, I can't read your mind. So if I'm the entrepreneur and you are working for me, I need to share the direction so we know we're going towards the same thing. And the more human beings you get, the more you need to share. That's the role of a strategy document or any document. So I think people get too hung up on things. What is the value? What's the reason? Which is why when I do strategy, it's PowerPoint. It should not be more than 10 to 15 slides, articulating very simple things. A lot of us have, well, I don't know if a lot of us, when we do MBAs, we get very stuck on theories and models, and everybody gets excited. And there is value for that. But for me, that's not what really runs the business. You interrogate issues around that business and answer simple things. And most of the time, I don't think we even have to use a lot of the models and the theories that we do. If you just, well, I was going to say use common sense, but we know common is not that common. Sense is not that, yeah, because sometimes we think common sense is good thinking, and sometimes it's not.
Right.
But you do wish sometimes, which is why I use simple language. It's amazing. Sometimes you ask a client, what's your target market? They look at you as though because they work with, but really, and then you look at where they're spending their money in terms of marketing and advertising. Is it really necessary to be in all those things if you really understood what your market is? And if you really understood what your market is and who your market is, are you supposed to use that voice and tone? Are you supposed to be doing the things that you're doing? So sometimes you just have to get down to basics. So all these things are really to help us. So let's not get too stuck on business plans and what is giving us direction, and you put it in a format that everybody understands. I love strategies where, regardless of your educational background, you're able to understand it. I'm working with a client on Monday, and she's asked me to help her convey the message to her employees, because Busara Leadership Partners, we work very much at leadership level. But the more and more we work with clients, we find that they're saying sometimes they're lacking the right approach on how to communicate with their employees or get the buy-in of employees. So we increasingly, and I'm actually enjoying that space, because sometimes you can only be of value to the leader if you understand who the market is, and their market is their employees. And so you're able to give them the right tools to help them to be more effective. So I enjoy. I think I'm enjoying that space of employees, and so we on Monday will be focusing on how does everybody, from the person who answers the phone to the creative, because it's a creative environment, how do they live this strategy and understand what it is, so that they are all working towards the same thing.
There's a quote that I usually refer to when we do our strategy corner promos from one of my favorite professors, Robert Kaplan, the founder of the Balanced Scorecard.
Yeah.
So he said, if you had to wake someone up 12 o'clock at midnight and ask them, shake them up and ask them, what is the strategy of the company
They should
you
be
work
able
for?
to say, yeah.
Apart from being annoyed, they wouldn't have a clue what the strategy is.
No, because we do make it complicated. This is it. I mean, I think we get caught up in other things. It's Indaba and the managers go away somewhere. It's about getting the most articulate people to, and also the one trend I'm finding in South Africa, people are increasingly using facilitators who are not strategists.
Right.
So a facilitator can guide your conversation, but they can't interrogate your thinking. They can't say, really?
Yeah.
Is it, what does that mean? How is that really? And push the quality of your thinking. That's also a problem that I'm observing from afar. And you try and be objective about it, because you're saying, is it because it's a market that is not using me? But you really can see the difference, because sometimes you then get caught in, and they have been doing strategy for a long time, and you're like, but these are basics. Why didn't somebody interrogate that, or how can your thinking not be crisp if you've been doing this all this time? So I think we also, as entrepreneurs, as leaders, as managers, need to appreciate exactly what skill and competence we need for things. What is it that creates a particular thing? So when somebody talks strategy, what does that mean? What is a strategy? And what type of information, so that you yourself are able to interrogate your own thinking and say, these are just activities that are leading us. There's a client one time, he was talking an activity. So he's in financial services. He's working with a retailer, and the retailer is distributing their product. It's a white label product. And then the retailer is now thinking of producing and introducing their own financial services.
Right.
And this is their major channel of distribution. So I say to him, how did you sign that contract? How did you not foresee that maybe in the future they may want to be your competitor?
Right.
So now he's saying the strategy doesn't work. I'm like, no, it's got nothing to do. Your thinking was not
correct. Yeah.
robust enough in the beginning for you to have interrogated that. Now I think we're starting to appreciate that your competitor can come from anywhere. You know, before you used to just, when you do competitive analysis, you just look at people in your category.
But it could be anyone.
Anybody.
Some guy in the garage somewhere.
Now with the smartphone, your competitor is anybody.
Right.
So you really need to be a thinker that is strategic. I cannot emphasize that enough. And we need to understand when we say strategic what that means. There are just so many dimensions and things you have to take care of when you're doing stuff. So I'm kind of interested. I'm going to follow up with that client and find out what happened to that market space. So it's quite interesting that somebody looks at one contract and one activity and one channel and thinks that's the strategy. No, it's not.
Now, in closing, I mean, there are aspiring entrepreneurs out there. There are people currently exploring entrepreneurship, they're current entrepreneurs, what would be your message to them?
Well, I don't know if you should be exploring so much. Because, I mean, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's either you're an investor, which it's fine, you look for opportunities to invest in. But really, as an entrepreneur, I should think you're answering a need and you have a service, a product, and a passion. So that answers itself. The question is, how do you then get into that market? And a lot of us are having challenges about access to our market, because our market also should not just be South Africa, also should not just be government, So a lot of our limitations are because we are limited ourselves in our thinking and in our exposure. So this is why it's so important to expose yourself to as much knowledge, to diverse knowledge, to things that are outside your comfort zone, outside of your network, outside of your circle. The most breakthrough idea for me came when I was traveling the Middle East in 2016. A lot of us as entrepreneurs focus on big firms, large companies, multinationals.
Right.
We're all trying to get the same business. But there are already existing multinational companies that are servicing them. So you are the least in terms of priority when you make proposals. One thing I experienced about the Middle East, especially Israel, and I think Jordan as well, mid-sized businesses, small business, they're doing businesses amongst themselves. Even entrepreneurs will ask for help from another entrepreneur and pay them for that service.
Right.
So their pricing is different because obviously you're working with a different size market, but it's creative. A lot of our restriction is in our minds. And I discovered that about myself. My challenge now is, if I understand that my market is medium-sized to small companies, how do I reach them and how do I sell my value so that they know that they're investing? Because a lot of time, small businesses complain about costs. So when they have to buy a service, they will, complain that it's costly and not see the benefit of using the service, because without it, they may not survive. So that is my challenge. So I can't say my problem is access to market. My problem is my thinking.
Right.
How do I relearn, unlearn, and do things differently so that my business can survive? And I think a lot of us, if we start thinking that way, what can I learn? How can I do things differently to survive? We will find we have many more breakthrough moments than we are having now.
Well, this has been a very delightful discussion, Dudu. Thank you so much for joining our Strategy Corner podcast. Now, there are people out there who may be interested in the work that you do at Busara Leadership Partners. How do they get in touch with you?
They can email me at info@Busara Leadership Partners, or visit our website, www.busaraleadershippartners.co.za. They can also follow me on Twitter and send me a message at Dudu Msomi or at Busara SA.
Dudu, thank you so much.
My pleasure. I hope you enjoy this engagement, and the very best to you if you're an entrepreneur.
We'll be knocking at your door in the coming months so that you can join our program again.
I would love to join you again.
Thank you.
Okay.
That was Dudu Msomi, the founder and CEO of Busara Leadership Partners, a strategic advisory and consulting firm, who shared with us the important concepts underlying business sustainability. If you have any suggestions about the show or want to recommend any future topics and guests, please email me at lekometa@strategycorner.co.za.
Thank you for listening. We hope you've enjoyed this episode and found the material to be of great value to you. If you'd like to get more information about Strategy Corner and the services we offer, please email info@strategycorner.co.za, lekometsa@strategycorner.co.za. You can also follow us using the handle @Strategy Corner on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the latest on Strategy Corner. Till next time, goodbye.